Hello. Um, so I look a little different. you know, uh, it's getting warm. I'm just starting over. I got a little story to tell today. First, I will show off. I'm obviously not sponsored or anything. I just happen to like Willie's Remedy. These smokes are Willie Nelson's smokes. They're hemp smokes, legal. These are THCA rich. Legal in Texas. Everything I'm burning mostly is store-bought pot. And so, fortunately, today, we will get to smoke while we tell our story. So, briefly, I'll discuss that whenever hemp was legal, I grew hundreds, if not thousands, of plants down in San Marcos, Texas. It was a fella named Rocco down there. We leased some land on his little farm. Shout out to Rocco. For the life of me, I can't remember the little town that they're in west of San Marcos and what Rocco's last name is, but bless those guys. Those guys were cool. We had one good run, and then harvested a lot of bud that we still have 4 or 5 years later, and just never could sell it. It was all CBD, and obviously the THC market came on, and they're dealing with some litigation now or whatever, but they're still selling these products in every smoke shop. And so anyway, we had a similar setup with a pre-rolled deal that were custom. We had a custom filter on there that had our brand logo, Anderson Family Farms. We no longer have a website or a license to do that. Of course, we may bring it back one day if we find out if we can grow in Texas. I know how it goes. It's like you probably could grow regular old stuff and then test it early and it would comply or whatever. But I know most of this stuff, I believe, is grown out of state. It's just regular stuff. And, as opposed to hemp. Like if you smoke one of these hemp smokes, it's like a very similar strain to the hemp strains that, if not the same strains, Anyway, so, the story today. Forgive me, this may be a long one. So I have some chickens. I let my chickens run loose outside of their deal every now and then, but they still are gated off in their little run. Well, after I mowed the backyard today, I let them loose. For the first time in the backpack. And so, pretty soon, one of them ducked under the fence and was in my neighbor's backyard. And I've got these pool noodles on the side of my deal, on the side of my coop, to protect me and my wife from the tin metal edge. And so one day a pool noodle had jumped the fence. He had grown legs and jumped the fence. And I went and got that pool noodle. I just jumped the fence like you do when you're a kid. Hush, I'm trying to shoot a video here. So today I did the same thing. I jumped the fence, chased the chicken around, and grabbed that chicken, threw it back over. And I'm in this little bitty country town. And so before long, we're milling around, and all 6 chickens bust through the back corner. They're like in her driveway on the other side. Not really in the yard anymore, but we walk around the 2 houses and walk through her driveway, which is accessible from the road. We blocked off the under deal, and we tossed all 6 chickens over the fence. Okay, my wife is holding my 1-year-old daughter And we're leaving the driveway, about to hit the street, and a police officer has his firearm pulled and aimed at us, and he says, you know, don't move, sir, get down on the ground. And so I got down on the ground. You know, I've been arrested many times. I've been put in handcuffs and turned loose 3 times now. I've been arrested 4 times or more. And never has there ever been a victim to any crime that they say that I commit. Fortunately, they didn't say I committed a crime today. You know, technically, I was trespassing. But this leads us into the conversation. I mean, partner comes up and cuffs me. We talk a little bit. You know, I explain that I'm the neighbor and that if Miss Nitsa called, then she must have not recognized me in the camera or whatever, you know. Anyway, so they call Miss Nitsa, square everything out, turn me loose, all good. My wife and I come home. The cops are very nice, apologetic, really nice fellas. I never have any real problems with the police, you know, themselves. Are they trying to do their job? Is the law? We're going to go into all this right now, okay? Sorry, this keeps going out on me. I think that a lot of the time, most of the time, they mean well, right? They're the police. But clearly, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are against the police, right? I wouldn't say that I'm for no police. But, you know, in a few years, probably 2032, I will run for president of the United States. I will announce my candidacy whenever you do it. I'll be of age, legal age at that time. And the biggest platform that I'm running on is, we're not going to get too down this rabbit hole. Hush! We're not going to get too down this rabbit hole. But taxation is not only theft, it's armed robbery. Any form of taxation is illegitimate, illegal, evil, whatever you want to call it. And so, just like in small towns we have volunteer fire departments, we'll have volunteer firemen. I'm sorry, volunteer policemen. And we'll work all this out. We'll have voluntary funding, and we'll have different ways for the government to acquire money or whatever. Hush. So, you know, not trying to piss anybody off here. I still think people can have jobs. I still think people can have paid jobs. But we're going to work all that out in a few years. I'll make a different video on why I'm having to run for president and why my platform is smoke pot, have guns, no taxes, abolish all the major institutions and agencies. And even we will rename the country, and it will be all new. Maybe new money based on gold or something. I digress. You know, a police officer often draws his firearm preemptively. In order to force you to comply. But I will comply without the need of a firearm. Perhaps, you know, they do it for their own safety. It's an unfortunate situation because I understand the nuances of you're going in here thinking someone's broke in, you know, heisting whatever jewelry this old gal has. You're coming around the corner. He's coming out. You don't know what you're going to get into, okay? But to point your gun at a man and his wife and his 1-year-old child, perhaps would make you think, would make you reconsider how you've come into this. You just get the intel that there's just a fella, and I believe even Miss Nitsa thinks, even right now, that it was just me. And Officer Justin, was very apologetic, and he said, to draw my firearm and not take somebody in feels funny. And I bet. And so, all that to say, even if you're going to pursue somebody, even if I ran for it or whatever, the only situation in which you should be pointing a gun at me is if I have a gun and potentially pointing it at you, and it's like, we get into that nitty gritty deal. It's like, I'm still allowed to have a gun. I can at least be carrying my firearm, and then often I've been arrested, and the fact that you have a firearm on you at all just adds the degree of criminality, which is strange, because I thought I was allowed to have guns. I'm an American, a taxpayer. Check my criminal history. I don't have any DUIs. I don't have one public intox. I don't have one real crime. Every crime is a pot-related crime or a traffic violation. And I'm about to be 30 years old. So this is going to be a two-parter where we briefly talk about that, and then we're going to move into something about the 3 of 7 project. Chad Wright of the 3 of 7 project just put out a thing that I thought was inspiring and made me think of, I don't agree with everything Chad says, clearly. If you're familiar with Chad, he's against pot and things like that. But, he's just had a child. And he's talking about the infant vaccine schedule. And I'm glad I look like this. I feel like people take me more seriously. Of course, I'm wearing a ridiculous defender of the... We're going to go into that. The defender of freedom. We're going to defend freedom at another time. In another little video, little podcast, whatever you call them. I wanted to say, you've got to stick to your guns. And all the pediatricians, all the doctors are completely compromised, okay? Because they have a conflict of interest. They're being paid by the pharmaceutical companies to dish out vaccines. He says, he makes a great point. It should be criminal. It's criminal. There's victims to these crimes. Pediatricians are pushing vaccines. They're clearly biased. There's either a vaccine neutral doctor or a pro-vaccine doctor who's going to be pushing them like a salesman, and a good salesman, and a well thought out sales pitch. The guys are, trying to manipulate you in front of your spouse, manipulate your spouse and you to do something that is not correct because of the safety of your child, acting like, they have some sort of moral authority. These people, up and down the board, the medical industry, the political class, the cops, they have no moral authority. These people have no moral authority. And so they have no authority. The authority that they have left is through the corrupt institution of, the government. I don't even have to go into things that people can refute or try and refute, because none of it's really refutable. I can just be clear and everybody understands what I'm talking about. The corruption of the government, the corruption of the medical institutions, big pharmaceutical companies, forcing the conflict of interest in our child's life, in our decision-making process for our child's health and well-being. We trust the system too much with public schooling and all that stuff. It's like we trust the system. And, I don't agree with everything Chad Wright says, but I really appreciate him speaking up. I don't have a voice on the platform like that guy does. And, no, he makes a great point. Nobody's talking about it. And it's a struggle, it's a fight, it's a war that we're all in. And just like 1,000 other wars, economically, the gas, that we're all in, that nobody wants to talk about, because all of the reasons that nobody wants to talk about things. And so, just an interesting time in our lives, an interesting day. And I just wanted to mention to the parents out there to stay strong. Don't fold. Find a good doctor. Vaccine neutral is all you get. There's no anti-vax doctors, clearly, because anti-vaxxers have been, slandered and canceled. They were like the first to be canceled before there was canceling. And God bless them. It goes without saying that we have the control. We have the say over what our children are going to be shot up with. Screw you guys. All right. Over and out.